everyone, welcome back to Bible Verse Breakdown. I'm Ewaenruwa, and if this is your first time, thanks for coming. Here we break down Bible verses, and if this isn't your first time, then thanks for coming back. In this video, we'll be breaking down the verse, Matthew chapter 10, verse 28, where Jesus Christ stated, "And fear not them which kill the body, but are not able to kill the soul, but rather fear him, which is able to destroy both soul and body in hell." Okay, before we get into the deep meaning of this verse, we first of all need to clear a few terms. Firstly, the word hell does not mean a place where fire burns continuously. I know there are places in the Bible that make it look like that, but it's not. One, because God never said he created hell. If you read Genesis chapter 1, that wasn't mentioned. And secondly, we read places in the Bible that talk about hell as the grave. If you read Acts chapter 2, verse 31 and Psalm chapter 16, verse 10, it said Christ was in hell. Does it mean Christ was in hellfire? Certainly not. It's the grave. Then the idea of the body and soul. Christians also tend to think that it's two different entities, and maybe the people Christ was talking about can kill the body, but then the soul kind of escapes, or some other phenomenon. No, it simply means that there are people in this world. Satan, the devil, is the god of this world. If you read 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 4. And he has people on earth who run the show, political leaders, and all kinds of people who have lots of authority in this world. They can physically harm you, injure you, send you to prison, as Potiphar did to Joseph in Genesis chapter 39, verse 20, or how King Ahab did to the prophet Micaiah in 1 Kings chapter 22, and how Satan was able to arrest Jesus Christ, if you read Matthew chapter 26, and crucify him in chapter 27. So Jesus Christ was saying that there are people who have the ability to do that. And of course, it's not just political leaders. It could be friends who don't like God, or employers who don't like God. They want to try to get you into unrighteousness. And if you fear them, which Christ said we shouldn't, then you will naturally want to disobey God so that you won't offend them. Because you know that if you do God's will and you kind of cast them out, then they'll be offended and they'll begin to do stuff you won't like. So Christ was saying we shouldn't begin to disobey God because we fear them. If you look at people like Moses, they didn't care about what people would do to them. If you read Hebrews chapter 11, verse 27, it says that he forsook Egypt, not fearing the wrath of the king. So people like Moses, Joseph, Jesus Christ, they didn't fear political authorities or other people like Judas who could physically harm them and betray them. But there was someone they did fear, and that person is God Almighty. When God Almighty judges or puts something to an end, it doesn't come back. That's what Christ meant by it. But rather fear him, that is God, who is able to destroy both soul and body in hell. What he meant is that God Almighty can put an end to you. And because he possesses the power to resurrect, if you read Hosea chapter 13, verse 14, I will ransom them from the power of the grave. I will redeem them from death. He possesses that power. So when he says you are not going to partake of that blessing, then you have no hope. There's nothing man can do to you. There's no amount of money you're going to invest or anything. That's just it. If you look at how he judged Sodom and Gomorrah in Genesis chapter 19, he judged them and that was it. If you look at how he judged the old world in Genesis chapter 6 to 8, it's the same thing. And when Christ judged the Pharisees and their system in Matthew chapter 23, verses 33 to 39, and Luke chapter 19, verses 41 to 44, their system in AD 70 actually came to an end and it never rose up again. So we should fear God Almighty and those who dispense the gospel message and can pronounce judgment. If you look at the apostles, when they would pronounce judgment on a city or on someone, it would happen. And Christ promised them that power. in Matthew chapter 16 verse 19, that I will give thee the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatsoever thou shalt bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatsoever thou shalt loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. So they're given that power from God Almighty. So we should fear such ones. We should fear God Almighty. We should be willing to not do what men want so that we can obey or please God. That's what the apostles told the magistrates and leaders of the system at that time. We ought to obey God rather than men. If you read Acts chapter 5 verse 29, they understood the fact that, as it was stated in the book of Hebrews, it is a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living God. If you read Hebrews chapter 10 verse 31. So based on our spiritual knowledge and understanding, we will be able to build that fear within our hearts so that when people are trying to push us, force us, lure us into disobeying God, we will offend them. That is, we will not do what they want, and we will allow them to do whatever they want to us, good or bad, because we know that we're pleasing God and we're staying on His right side. What we should understand is that when we do so, God Almighty can bail us out of whatever they do to us. But if we offend Him, there's no other person who will bail us out. So we're kind of finished. So that's what Jesus Christ meant by what He said in Matthew chapter 10, verse 28, which once again reads, "And fear not them which kill the body, but are not able to kill the soul, but rather fear Him which is able to destroy both soul and body in hell." If you have enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified when we come out with our next verse breakdown. And if you have any questions about what we've talked about in this video, drop them in the comment section below and we'll address them. Have a great day, and God bless you.